Hello and welcome to another video. And this time it's a little bit of a different video than usual. This isn't a character's guide or any showcase of or anything. It's just a little video that I'm gonna be doing to answer the question if Eclair, the Rebel Trumpet, is worth it on the late game. On the late game I mean at this point of the game where there's not gonna be new characters or anything like that, and where almost everyone is at least level 100 or more. So uh, I'm doing this video because there's only 1 day and 11 hours before this character goes away, and it's the same thing for his exclusive arc light. And as you can see here on the avatar, I do have the character, and I have this character since like months ago, at the very least like 3 months ago, something like that. And even when I haven't been really using this character a lot, like I have only used this character like 10 fights or something like that, I can tell you if it's worth it or not because I already know how this character is. And first off, you can see that my Eclair is just level 1, but it's 4 stars, has his exclusive arc light at level 100, and is 1 star with 27k combat power. So, first off is to see what this character does and what is about him. We know that he's a priest. He specializes on healing, multi-moves, and dispelling capabilities. That doesn't say a lot, honestly, because the multi-move is quite disingenuous, but we're gonna just take a really quick look at the skills to see what is about Eclair. You can pause the video to read the skills, you know, so you get everything, but I'm trying to say it quickly and go to the important part of the skill. So I can go to, the teams and then if it's worth or not. The basic attack basically does damage, that is magical damage based on his attack and based on his HP, and at level 4 has a basic chance of dispelling one buff. His first skill, or first, real skill, it's a skill that purifies only one debuff from the target, and makes that the target in particular is gonna get healed by the passive of a player more than usual the next time. And also gives assistance rate up, that is basically a buff that gives 20% assistance rate. That is basically 20% chance that that character is gonna perform an assist during the turn of other allies, throw an extra attack. Very similar to what Chase is. And gives ambition after using the skill. Then we go to ambition, that is a passive. He basically, every time he acts, he consumes this special buff that is called ambition. Uh, every time he gets a turn, before he even gets the turn, he's gonna consume all the ambition that he has, and it's gonna heal based on his own max HP and the amount of ambition that he has. And how he gains ambition? Well, the first skill is gonna give him ambition, and also the passive skill. After his action, he's gonna get 1 stack of ambition. Also, if after his action the allies have more buffs than the enemy has buffs, he's gonna get another stack. And if your allies, or player allies, have fewer debuffs than the enemy, they're also gonna give another stack of ambition. And every 4 actions of the allies is gonna give you another stack of ambition. And that gets converted to 2 stacks if he's 6 stars. And also, if he at any time of the game consumes 5 stacks or more of ambition, he is gonna give high tier defense boost for 2 rounds. So it's basically an extra 40% physical defense. And if he consumes more than 7 stacks of ambition, he is gonna give to all of his allies block debuff. That is basically avoiding some debuffs. That is a buff to nullify enemy debuffs. He's also gonna give high tier defense boost, that is extra 40% physical defense, and damage reduction, that is basically a reduction of 20% on the damage taken to all the allies. So he can either just heal a little bit every time he plays, or he can heal a ton and give a ton of armor, a ton of damage reduction, and block debuff if he has a lot of ambition. But for Eclair to have a lot of ambition, he needs literally an entire team built around purifying skills and buffing skills. And also, he cannot heal if he is under control effects. If he is immobilized, he cannot heal. That means if he is stunned or frozen. Now, the ultimate is more magical damage that scales with his attack and his max health, and has a 100% basic chance to dispel only 2 buffs from the target, and also has 50% basic chance to inflict absorption buffs on the target, and can perform that twice. So that is basically like big team basic attack, that when the enemy has absorption buffs, they cannot get a buff while they have these stacks on, because that is going to nullify them. Also, at 5 stars, if the enemies have no buff, he's gonna have even higher chances to inflict the absorption buffs. And you can level up the skill. He's gonna gain 2 stacks of ambition after using the skill. He's gonna do a little bit more damage, and he's gonna have less cooldown. The disappointing part here is that this character is based around dispelling enemy buffs, but he can only dispel 1 or 2 at a time, while we have characters like Seshi that is able to dispel 4 buffs at the same, in the same action from the enemy. And then we have things like Anniversary Albedo, that is also a priest character that is able to dispel at the bare minimum 2 buffs from all the characters in the game, and it's almost guaranteed every time she uses the ultimate. Also, her passive can do the same, and her second skill can also dispel some buffs, being the shields. While Eclair can only do that with the ultimate and 1 skill, so he is likely outperformed by other healers, by meta healers specifically, and he needs a lot of setup. He isn't like Clementine or Anniversary Albedo, or even Pestonia, that you can put that healer in any team and it's gonna perform really well. Now, Eclair needs a very specific team to work with him, and that team needs to have a lot of purifying skills, it needs to have a lot of buffs, and it also needs to be a team that benefits from assistance rate up. And what that will be? Well, first thing I can think of is something like the counter team. Something with, for example, Tank Kokyoto, so he can purify 1 debuff from every ally, and also give them buffs, because he gives a special buff that gives 20% more counter rate and 20% more counter damage. Well, also gives another buff that is basically the shield, and he can also give another buff with other skill that is the God Slayer, and he can also give Indomitable, that is another buff. So you get the idea, right? Characters like Tanko Kyotos that purify debuffs and also give multiple buffs to his allies are the ones that combine really well with the Eclair. Then we can have something like, for example, the Counter Yuri. Counter Yuri also gives a special buff to anyone that performs a counter, and also with Kokyotos as the captain, they are gonna gain a shield, they're gonna heal, and all of that. That will help Eclair a lot, and if the enemies that you're facing have, a lot of shields or something like that, Eclair can come in play, dispel the enemy shields, so your counter characters destroy them, and as your last character on the team, you could either add another counter character to, solidify the team, or something else that might be meta and you really, you really like, or maybe that something that you really level up because you like the character and you wanted it on the team. It could be your favorite character in there. So he needs a lot of buffs and needs a lot of purifying skills. Characters that do that well. First of all, that Kokyotos that I told you gives a lot of buffs, while also dispelling. He has the chance of dispelling with his counter attacks and the basic attack enemy buffs, while also purifies ally, ally debuffs. Well, Lupus Regina is also another healer that gives a lot of buffs. The only bad part, you might be having 2 healers or 2 priests on the same team. Another character might be Pandora's Actor. He is by default the character that gives the most amount of buffs on the game in a single move. He can give you a ton of buffs, and he really can give you almost any buff in the game. and also he can steal enemy buffs. So he helps Eclair because he makes his team have more buffs than the enemy and have fewer debuffs than the enemy. Because he can steal things like uh, block debuff and give it to the ally so the ally doesn't get debuffed. But again, the bad part, you might have double healer on that team. Cocytus, the tank version for the reasons that I already told you, and the same can go for Anniversary Albedo. She gives a lot of buffs as well, very similar to Pandora's Actor, but she's also another healer, so you might have like two healers on the same team. That is not optimal most of the time. You can also add something like a character that puts multiple debuffs on the enemy, so your characters always have less debuffs than the enemy. And Albedo might fit right in that team because she can put burn on the enemies. She can also put damage aggravation on the enemies. She can put a chain effect on the enemies, 3 different debuffs. And she can also put healing reduction. So that's another debuff. So, and she can basically put 4 debuffs there. Or you can put this Entoma with the Desolation set, because she might be able to get either all the team with shock and maybe another debuff that is another damage over time, or you can focus on one single enemy and put everything. You can put a lot of bleed stacks, shock, and burn at the same time, with Entoma first skill buffed by her ultimate with a Desolation set. So those types of characters are really good with Eclair, characters that are like those mages that I show you that put multiple debuffs on the enemy, and characters like those priests and tanks that give purifying, give multiple buffs at the same time. So you might have very limited options. You might have a mage team and a counter team, for example. Mage team is really strong right now against things like the Realm of Shadows and the Demonic Tower, as well as the Holy Rings. While the counter team was really good on the multiplayer, and right now is still good on the multiplayer, but you need to have the entire team max to be able to perform against things like the meta teams or the bleed team now. So he is basically good on teams that are not the best right now. That are good, yes, those are good teams, but are not the best right now. And also, there's another, characters that outperform Eclair. If you want Eclair for the dispelling capabilities, Anniversary Albedo is way better. If you want Eclair for the, multiple buffs that he can give with the passive, Pandora's Actor can do it better. He's not gonna give the exact same buff every single time, yeah, but he's gonna give you a lot of buffs, and if you build properly a team with him, you can make him give invulnerability at his second action, almost every time. Also, if you want Eclair for the multi-move, he doesn't have multi-move. He isn't like Mage Entoma that can throw the ultimate to buff herself and so on, then gain another turn to move again. No, the game classifies Eclair as a multi-move because he does a lot of things in this single action. Like, he gains a lot of ambition stacks in one action. In the same action, just a moment before doing it, he spends a lot of ambition stacks to do a healing and to maybe give multiple buffs to his allies. And then you have the actual action where you can decide what skill are you gonna use on your team. And I know I said he needs a team that performs well with assistance right up, and counter team and mage teams are not exactly what synergizes with that. But you can make a counter team member do an assist and might be really good, like the special counter Yuri. And if you do something like Mage Albedo do an assist, she might be able to proc burn even more than usual. So it's decent. And if you want the Eclair for an assist team where you use characters like, for example, Mate Albedo or SSR Entoma or Nigredo, you can do it. You can use something like Hamuske to give a lot of physical defense and extra damage to everyone. Then you can use 2 of those assist characters like Albedo and Entoma, or Entoma and Nigredo, or Nigredo and Albedo, whatever, and then Eclair, and it's gonna be really good, but you're not gonna notice it that much because Entoma, if properly leveled up, like I have her right here, she has a lot of assist rate on her own. Then if you go for Nigredo, she has a lot of assist rate if the enemy has her special debuff on. So you're gonna really notice Eclair, interference or Eclair addition to the team if the enemy doesn't have Nigredo special debuff. That might be really helpful for Nigredo star 4 stars or lower. But if this Nigredo is 5 stars or 6, she doesn't need Eclair. And Mate Albedo is probably one of the, if not the best assist rate character in the game because she has guaranteed assist attacks, even more than other characters that have guaranteed assist attacks like Hamuske, the normal one, not the robot. And because she has guaranteed assist attacks, she doesn't need assistance rate up. And even if she were to need extra assist, she has the assistance rate up that Eclair gives in her skill I Am the Queen, her second skill, the tornado that she throws. And because you cannot, stack up the same buff multiple times, you cannot use that buff of Albedo and then put it again with Eclair and gain 40% assist rate, because that's not how the game works. The game is gonna overlap one over the other. So you might be able to extend the duration of that buff on Albedo, yes, but you're not gonna get extra assist rate. So he might be good if you're running or you want to run or you like to play assist rate characters and you don't have them maxed out. But if you have those characters maxed out, you don't need Eclair. So Eclair gets basically outperformed by Pandora's Actor in the question of buffs. He gets outclassed and outperformed by Anniversary Albedo on the dispelling capabilities and also on the healing aspect. Because even when Eclair is gonna heal based on his HP, that is S, Albedo heals based on her own HP and her attack, based on the damage that she does. And she has S on attack and A on HP. So she's basically double scaling to heal, while Eclair only scales with HP. Not only that, but she also gives a lot of really, really useful things like Indomitable or Invulnerabilities. And then for what can be useful, Eclair, well, for what I already told you, for the, how do I say it, the teams that are very difficult to debuff and that are very easy to have multiple buffs on the same team. But the characters might be really different from player to player because every one of us levels up a different character and so. So Eclair is a good healer, yes. The only bad thing is that he is outperformed by the meta. If he was, for example, one of the early priests or healers that we get on the game, like we get Lupus Regina and then we get Eclair shortly after, he will be really good. This because he was out on the time where most of the meta characters were out, he was left behind. So I will recommend you Eclair only if you don't have Anniversary Albedo or if you don't have Pestonia. The two most useful characters in the game on the healers or the priest category. If you have something like Clementine, maybe you can also use her instead of Eclair. But if you want Eclair for the buffs, Pandora's Actor is better. If you want Eclair for the dispelling capabilities or the healing, Albedo is better. If you want him for the utility of the assistance rate up and so, unless you want to run an assist rate team, I will recommend you other healers like Pestonia instead. So Pestonia gets another turn for another color, gets an extra turn to another character, so you play again, and it kinda mimics the character having an assist attack and things like that. So yeah, I will say Eclair, do not get him. If you have Albedo, Pandora's Actor or Pestonia, don't get Eclair and get another character instead. But if you want him for the collection, well, go ahead. And if you, for example, don't have Albedo, if you don't have a level up Pandora's Actor and you don't want to level him up, maybe you don't have Pestonia and you don't care about Clementine, then get him, because yeah, he certainly can be better in some situations than the likes of Henry or Lupus Regina or other healers like Well, I forgot what other healers are on the game, but let me see. Well, Mare or Touch Shelter, there is also Priest. Yeah, she's also better than Mare and the Shelter Priest. So depends on what do you have. If you have the meta healers, stay with the meta healers. If you don't have them, you can get Eclair, and it's not gonna be that bad. Just make sure to make him as tanky as you can. And yeah, that will be basically everything. It's worth it, not for the meta, not for the late game. Maybe worth it for the mid game and so. So yeah, but you can get him. Like, it's fun to walk around as this character holding a Eclair. So yeah, with that I think I have covered the basics. I'm gonna do a character's guide for anyone that has a Eclair or already got Eclair from before the original banner, or just is curious about the character. I'm gonna do a character's guide of Eclair, but it's not gonna be in the next days, because I'm still doing the last part of the PDL practical guide, and after the PDL practical guide, I might do a character's guide on someone else, and then on Eclair, because I have quite some characters here to level up, well, to start up and do their guides, and also have to do a video about Tislopu Regina again, and for Tisnigredo. So yeah, that will be my conclusion, and until the next time, I guess. So bye bye.